The audience didn't expect tears that night. Keith Urban, usually smiling, collected, the ultimate professional, suddenly broke mid-sentence. For years he'd hidden his pain behind guitars and love songs, but this time the mask slipped. His voice cracked, his hands trembled, and the silence in the studio said everything words couldn't. It wasn't just another performance. It was the moment the man who once sang about healing finally admitted he couldn't heal himself anymore. The breaking point. In October 2025, Keith Urban appeared live on national television to promote his reality series The Road, a project that was supposed to celebrate young musicians chasing their dreams. Instead, it became a mirror for everything falling apart in his own life. Just weeks earlier, Nicole Kidman had filed for divorce after 19 years of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. Fans who tuned in that night noticed immediately that something was wrong. Keith looked thinner, his usually bright demeanor replaced by exhaustion. When the host asked about the contestants, he smiled politely, then went quiet. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "you realize the road takes more than it gives." For a few seconds he tried to continue, but emotion took over. The show cut to an unscheduled break. Later, producers confirmed he'd requested to step away from the production temporarily, citing personal and emotional reasons. In music circles, the word spread quickly. Keith Urban was resigning from The Road, the show he had created, financed, and filmed months earlier with passion. It wasn't anger or scandal that pushed him out. It was heartbreak. Behind that moment were years of pressure. Touring had consumed him. In The Road's first episode, filmed in early 2025, he had confessed feeling lonely and miserable while traveling from city to city. He'd spoken openly about waking up on buses at 3 a.m., sick, sleepless, missing his wife and children. Now those words felt prophetic. He had warned the world, in his own quiet way, that something inside him was breaking. For Keith, the show's title wasn't just a metaphor. It was his life. The road that had once saved him was now the very thing that took everything away, from hope to silence. Long before the tears on live television, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were the picture of hope. They met by chance on January 15, 2005, at the G'day USA Gala in Los Angeles, a night celebrating Australians who had made it big abroad. Nicole, then already an Oscar winner, was the symbol of elegance and strength. Keith, a rising country music star from Nashville, was still trying to outrun his own demons. When they met backstage, something sparked instantly. Nicole later said she was smitten from the start, though Keith waited 4 months before calling her. "I wasn't ready," he would later admit. "I was intimidated." But when he finally reached out, everything changed. Their relationship grew quickly. Quiet dinners in New York, long walks, late-night talks. On Nicole's 38th birthday, Keith appeared at her door at dawn with her favorite gardenias. That gesture sealed their fate. By June 25, 2006, they were married in a candlelit ceremony overlooking the Sydney coastline. Their wedding felt like a film, simple, intimate, radiant. Keith sang "Making Memories of Us" to her, and every guest felt they were witnessing something eternal. Soon after, the fairy tale turned real. Only 4 months into marriage, Nicole discovered that Keith was battling alcohol addiction. Instead of leaving, she staged an intervention. He entered rehab, and when he returned 3 months later, she was waiting, hands trembling, eyes full of hope. It was the kind of love story people wanted to believe in. Redemption, second chances, unconditional devotion. For years, they lived quietly on their Tennessee farm, away from Hollywood's noise. Their daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, arrived in 2008 and 2010, bringing even deeper joy. Keith once said that Nicole made him a better man, and Nicole often called him "my rock." But over time, silence crept in. Fame pulled them in opposite directions. Film sets, world tours, sleepless nights. They still kissed hello and goodbye, but between those moments were miles of absence. By 2023, those absences had become the rule, not the exception. Keith's songs grew heavier, more confessional. Nicole's public smiles grew thinner. They weren't fighting, they were fading. The road that had begun with flowers and music was turning into something neither could fix. The performance that said goodbye. In June 2024, months before their world quietly fell apart, Keith Urban stood on stage at the American Film Institute Life Achievement Award ceremony, honoring Nicole Kidman. For millions watching, it looked like a moment of pride, a husband celebrating his wife's career. But for those who truly listened, something about his voice felt different. Keith wasn't there to talk about awards or fame. His words came slow, deliberate, and heavy. "When we first got married," he began, "everything was perfect. Then I almost lost it all." The room went silent. Everyone knew he was referring to his addiction, the dark chapter that had once nearly ended their marriage. "Nicole didn't walk away," he said softly, his voice cracking. "She chose to stay. She chose love." Those words were followed by a long pause, not the kind of pause you plan for television, but the kind that comes when memory hits too hard. Nicole sat in the audience, her daughters beside her, tears glistening in her eyes. The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was emotional. People later said it was one of the rawest speeches ever given at an AFI event. At the time, no one knew that in less than a year, they'd be filing for divorce. But when the video resurfaced after their separation in September 2025, it broke the internet. Fans watched it again and again, now hearing it as a goodbye disguised as gratitude. "He knew," one fan commented. "You can hear it in his voice." For Keith, that speech wasn't performance, it was confession. His words about choosing love were also about holding on to something that was slipping through his fingers. Those close to him later said that he'd been emotional for weeks leading up to the AFI event. He'd told friends that touring had become lonely and soul-sucking, that the stage no longer filled the silence he felt when Nicole wasn't there. It was around that same time that Keith began writing songs for his 12th studio album, High. The first track, Straight Line, would later sound eerily prophetic. A man trapped in routine, desperate to break free, trying to find himself again. When he sang about escaping a soul-sucking routine, no one realized he wasn't just talking about music. He was talking about his marriage. The audience saw a man celebrating his wife, but in truth, he was already saying goodbye. The road to collapse. By early 2025, Keith Urban's world had quietly begun to fall apart. On paper, it looked like another golden year, a new reality series, a fresh tour, a new album. But in truth, he was burning out. His show, The Road, premiered on CBS in February, following a group of young country artists competing for the chance to open for him on tour. It was supposed to be a passion project, a way to give back after decades in the spotlight. Instead, it became a portrait of a man slowly breaking. During filming, Keith opened up in ways fans had never seen. Sitting on a dimly lit stage, guitar resting on his knee, he talked about the loneliness that haunted touring life. "You wake up on a bus at 3:30 in the morning, you're sick, you miss your family," he said. "You're completely lonely and miserable. And you ask yourself, why am I doing this?" Then he answered his own question. "Because it's not a job. It's my life." The episode aired months later, after Nicole had already filed for divorce. Watching it in hindsight, fans felt as if he had been trying to send a message all along. The exhaustion, the sadness in his tone, the way he avoided saying her name. It was all there. In one of his interviews republished by Entertainment Tonight, Keith spoke about relationship sacrifices being necessary for his career. "It's not a job," he repeated. "It's my purpose." The comment hit hard. For years, fans had seen him and Nicole as the rare couple who balanced love and fame. But now it seemed like he was admitting that something, or someone, had been sacrificed along the way. Then came the controversy that made everything worse. During one of his High and Alive tour performances, Keith changed the lyrics of The Fighter, a song written for Nicole in 2016. Instead of singing, "When they're trying to get to you, baby, I'll be the fighter," he sang, "When they're trying to get to you, Maggie, I'll be your guitar player." Maggie Baugh, a 25-year-old multi-instrumentalist touring with him, smiled in surprise on stage. She later posted the clip on Instagram with the caption, "Did he just say that?" followed by 2 shocked emojis. Within hours, it went viral. Fans connected the dots, the changed lyric, the missing wedding ring, and Nicole's silence. Days later, Nicole Kidman filed for divorce. TMZ reported that the separation had begun months earlier and that it was actually Keith who wanted to end things, not Nicole. The Daily Mail went further, suggesting he had grown close to a younger woman in the industry. Neither Keith nor Maggie commented, but the damage was done. The woman who had once saved his life from addiction was now walking away, quietly, without anger. And the man who had once sung about fighting for love was now too tired to fight at all. The day everything ended. September 30th, 2025. That was the day Nicole Kidman officially filed for divorce. After 19 years of marriage, she cited irreconcilable differences, but the documents revealed something deeper. She requested to be named the primary residential parent of their daughters, with 306 days per year in her care and 59 with Keith. It wasn't anger. It was surrender. A quiet acknowledgement that their paths had finally diverged. When the news broke, the world froze. Fans who had followed their 2-decade love story couldn't believe it. This was the couple that had survived addiction, fame, and time apart, the couple who seemed unbreakable. But even the strongest hearts have limits. Nicole stayed silent, retreating into work and motherhood. Keith, however, had nowhere to hide. Just days later, he returned to television for a live episode of The Road. Producers later revealed that he had insisted on appearing, saying, "The show must go on." But what unfolded on air was something no one expected. As he began to thank the contestants, his voice started to tremble. He spoke about sacrifice, about how the road gives you everything and takes it all back. Then he paused, unable to continue. The camera lingered on him, eyes wet, jaw tight, silence stretching. Finally, he whispered, "I need a moment." The feed cut to commercial. When the show returned, the host announced that Keith Urban had stepped away for personal reasons. Within hours, his team confirmed that he was resigning from The Road, effective immediately, citing emotional exhaustion. It was a decision that stunned fans but didn't surprise those close to him. For months, he'd been unraveling quietly. Touring had become unbearable. He was still performing, but the joy was gone. His songs, once filled with warmth, now sounded like confessions. Straight Line, the lead single from his 2024 album High, had already hinted at it. He described it as a song about breaking free from a soul-sucking routine. At the time, people thought he was talking about the industry. Now they knew he was talking about life. Behind the scenes, those who worked on The Road said Keith was emotionally distant. He'd spend long hours alone in his trailer, sometimes replaying old videos of his performances with Nicole in the audience. One staff member said, "It felt like he was trying to remember who he was before everything fell apart." That night, when news of his resignation broke, social media exploded. Fans flooded timelines with clips of his old interviews, his speeches, his songs. One clip from the AFI tribute resurfaced again. Keith saying, "She chose love." But this time, fans noticed the pain in his eyes, the quiet tremor in his voice, Nicole's quiet strength. While Keith Urban's breakdown dominated headlines, Nicole Kidman's silence spoke louder than any interview ever could. Just 4 days after the divorce became public, she stepped into the ballroom of the American Foundation for AIDS Research Gala in Dallas, Texas, her first appearance since the split. She didn't arrive with fanfare, bodyguards, or statements. She simply walked in, poised and calm, as though carrying her pain in a way only she could. That night, Nicole wasn't there to defend herself or to talk about heartbreak. She was there to raise funds for HIV/AIDS research, a cause she'd quietly supported for years. Dressed in an elegant black gown, she presented an award to Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan, delivering a speech about compassion, resilience, and rebuilding after loss. Her voice was steady, her expression serene, but those who were there said her eyes told a different story. She looked reflective, grounded, like someone who had chosen acceptance over bitterness. Her ring finger was bare, yet her composure was unshaken. Attendees described her as glowing but fragile, a woman who had faced devastation and still chosen to show up. One reporter wrote, "It wasn't a red carpet comeback. It was quiet courage." In the weeks that followed, Nicole seemed determined to focus on purpose, not pain. She appeared at Paris Fashion Week with a new hairstyle fans dubbed her "breakup bangs," and later graced the cover of Vogue, where insiders said she declined to discuss the divorce, telling editors she was keeping it positive and believing everything happens for a reason. Keith, meanwhile, disappeared from the spotlight. His tour dates in Europe were postponed indefinitely, and his team confirmed he was taking time off to focus on family and recovery. Behind the scenes, friends said he was struggling to adjust to life without Nicole and their daughters full-time. One close source told People, "He's heartbroken, but still respectful. He knows she gave him everything she could." Despite the separation, neither of them lashed out publicly. There were no accusations, no bitterness, only mutual silence. Nicole once said in an interview years before, "Forgiveness is freedom." It seems she meant it. She and Keith agreed to co-parent their daughters with compassion, giving them the stability they both once fought to build. Their love story, it seemed, didn't end in hatred, but in quiet understanding. The same grace that had defined their marriage now defined their parting. Nicole's calm became a symbol of endurance. Keith's tears became a reminder of how fragile love can be when fame, distance, and exhaustion get in the way. By the end of 2025, both had retreated into separate worlds. Nicole to film sets and family life, Keith to solitude and songwriting. Yet in their own ways, they were still bound by something deeper than romance, a shared past that neither could erase. But what do you think? Was Keith Urban's emotional breakdown a sign that he still loves Nicole, or that he finally accepted it was over? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories from the world of fame and heartbreak.